It recalls a time before cars were clad in plastic, did the parking for you, and served as Wi-Fi hotspots. And it recently motored through the streets of the Egyptian capital of Cairo. 100 years ago, when stately vehicles like these sold for $500 and were commonly shifted with leather gloves, the Automobile and Touring Club of Egypt was founded. So to mark its milestone anniversary, roughly 60 classics rolled again in the city, and the president of the club says these particular cars, which he described as the finest and rarest in the world, have been in Egypt since the day they were sold. The nation's enthusiast club isn't the oldest of its kind in the world, but it does attract a lot of attention and admiration for the vehicles of yesteryear. One attendee says it's an encouragement to buy your own classic and join the parade the next time it rolls around. I'm Carl Azuz for The World from A to Z. Thank you for watching. Mexico is exactly a month away from what's set to be its largest election ever. More than 20,000 local and congressional positions are about to be voted on, in addition to the Mexican presidency itself. Some of the issues include an international trade agreement with the United States and Canada, the economy, security, immigration, and the relationship with America. But one major urgent matter for Mexico is the rising violence involving its drug cartels or organizations. On the first day of her campaign to lead the city of Celaya, a candidate named Gisela Gaitan was assassinated. She wasn't the only politician to lose her life in what's becoming Mexico's most violent election season.
Since the federal election process began in September, at least 20 candidates from across the political spectrum have been killed in Mexico, according to Votar Entre Balas, a civil society election monitoring project. Security expert Sandra Ley studies how organized crime in Mexico has increasingly used violence to influence elections over the past 20 years.
This is how organized crime has become de facto rulers in these communities, trying to capture politics, economics, and the social life of these territories.
They want me to drop out of the campaign, he says. They don't want me to participate. They want to continue this corrupt government. Organized crime nearly got their way. Corona was driving home one night in March when two men on a motorcycle sped past and opened fire. Corona now campaigns under armed escort, part of a security program run by the federal and local government that experts say can at times move too slow to keep up with the threats that candidates are facing. In Celaya, just hours before she was killed, Gisela Gaitan telling reporters, "We've asked for protection. Let's see if we get a response today." In the wake of her death, Mexico's president vowing to make it easier for candidates to apply for protection. If it's necessary to eliminate procedures to make support more expeditious, we'll do it. We can't hesitate with this. With 1 month until voters head to the polls, a devastating calculus for the candidates here who are putting their lives on the line. I was born here. My grandchildren were born here. I'm going to continue fighting. If it's necessary to risk my life, I'll risk it.
You're not scared?
I'm scared. I'm a human being. But that same fear lifts me up to move forward and trust in God. David Chortel, Mexico City.
On this date in world history. One of America's most wanted fugitives and terrorists was killed on May 2nd, 2011. Osama bin Laden was the leader of the Al-Qaeda terrorist group and the mastermind of several terrorist acts, including the September 11th attacks on the U.S. After American intelligence located bin Laden at a compound in Pakistan, a team of U.S. Navy SEALs killed him in a raid. And on May 2nd, 2008, what has been the deadliest cyclone of this century struck the Southeast Asian country of Myanmar, also known as Burma. Officials say Cyclone Nargis was a Category 4 storm, not the strongest to make landfall, but it hit a highly populated area that didn't have warning systems or plans in place to deal with disasters like it. Nargis claimed more than 138,000 lives and left hundreds of thousands of others homeless. In New York City, more than 100 additional protesters have been arrested at Columbia University after they took over a building there earlier this week and allegedly caused damage to school property. Like pro-Palestinian demonstrators on other university campuses, those at Columbia want the school to stop working with companies that do business with Israel. companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. But the school doesn't want to do that. And after talks between the two sides failed to find a solution, Columbia's president said she asked police to intervene. Protesters who've broken school rules have faced suspension and possible expulsion, but police say not everyone arrested is a student.
There were individuals on the campus, should not have been there. There were people who are professionals, and we saw evidence of training. We saw a shift in tactics.
Meanwhile, sometimes violent clashes between protesters, counter-protesters, and police continue on other university campuses.
Word of knowledge. The term oste or osteo is a combining form meaning what? Muscle, joint, bone, inflammation. Originating from a Greek word and combined to form terms like osteoarthritis and osteoporosis, oste means bone.
There have been setbacks, delays, and cost overruns with Boeing's new Starliner spacecraft, but the capsule that was built with a $5 billion contract from NASA is set to launch with people aboard for the first time next week. Their destination, the International Space Station.
There's no such thing as zero gravity in outer space. According to NASA, gravity can be found everywhere up there, just in small amounts. Gravity is what causes the moon to orbit around the Earth around the sun, and keeps the sun orbiting the center of the Milky Way galaxy. People and objects seem like they float in space, but gravity, the force of attraction that pulls objects towards each other, is still at work. It's just microgravity. The greater the distance between two objects, the weaker gravitational force. Gravity at the International Space Station is 90% weaker than on Earth's surface. Candle flames on Earth have a pointed teardrop shape caused by rising hot gases, but a flame on the ISS is rounded. Less gravity causes the gases emitted to flow differently. Researchers on the ISS study how plants and animals react and adapt to a microgravity environment, which can inform how people adapt, whether as astronauts now or living in space long-term in the future. Microgravity complicates a lot of things for astronauts, even little stuff like seasoning food. Did you know their salt and pepper is liquefied? The normal stuff would float away and gunk up all the technology that keeps the astronauts alive. There's a physical toll from microgravity too. Osteoporosis usually happens with old age, but in space, it takes as little as a week for bone loss to begin. And the skeletal system and muscles weaken from lack of resistance. They literally begin to waste away. Astronauts who spent less than 6 months in microgravity are able to recover their pre-mission bone strength within a year. But a study published last summer found that 6 months or longer caused bone loss equivalent to 2 decades of aging. And only about half of that bone density could be recovered when back on Earth. That's why astronauts spend a lot of time exercising in space, on specially designed workout equipment, and are always searching for ways to stop bone loss.
Guilderland is a town in upstate New York, just outside the capital of Albany, and that's where we heard from Mrs. Sittig's class. Farnsworth Middle School is watching, and awesome in the Empire State. Moving southwest from there, we're making a stop in Arkansas. Mr. Castleman's class is with us today from Lakeside Middle School. It's in the city of Hot Springs. And west-northwest of there, we're trekking to Utah. Mr. Moore's class is at Sandridge Junior High School. Hello to everyone watching from Ogden in the Beehive State. A Chicago rat hole has been removed, and we don't mean some old hideout of Al Capone. We mean, well, this. A chunk of sidewalk concrete shaped like a rat that had been lying around for decades. History doesn't tell us what happened to the rodent that left this impression, but the hole left an impression on thousands, especially after going viral earlier this year on social media. Rather than embrace it, the city replaced it with freshly poured, rat-free concrete. But it didn't throw out the old slab, so this could reappear somewhere one day. If enough people rat out the city for this, maybe it'll retroactively ratify a plan to return it to the public eye. Some karatics might call it a rat trap and try to stomp the idea, but for fat rat fanatics in a game of cat and mouse, any concrete move to rat place it in a scurry would be simply radical. I'm Carl Azuz, pestering you with puns on the world from A to Z. It'd mean the world to see you tomorrow, but for now, that's all, folks.